Under the golden glow of the African savanna, where the grass swayed like waves in the ocean, and the air hummed with the songs of crickets, there stood the grandest of all trees, the mighty baobab. Its thick trunk, so wide it could hide a family of elephants, stretched toward the heavens, and its branches, twisted like an old man's fingers, bore the sweetest fruit in the land. Perched high in this magnificent tree was Gudo, the baboon. He was strong, broad-shouldered, and as mighty as the baobab itself. However, strength was not his greatest gift. No, Gudo had a slight problem. He was as gullible as a newborn chick staring into the mouth of a crocodile. He lived a peaceful life, basking in the shade, plucking fruit and stuffing his cheeks to the brim. If laziness was an art, Gudo was its grandmaster. One fateful day, a small figure came hopping along the dusty path. His ears twitched, his nose wiggled, and his eyes sparkled with mischief. This was Tsuro the hare, a wanderer, a trickster, a genius wrapped in soft fur. Tsuro had no home, no tree, no grand throne like Gudo, but he had something far greater, an endless supply of cleverness. Tsuro stopped at the foot of the baobab, panting dramatically, sniffing the air like a gourmet chef inspecting a fine meal. "Oh, what a fine home you have, Gudo," Tsuro said, grinning ear to ear. "Such shade, such fruit. But have you heard the news?" Gudo, who was midway through stuffing yet another fruit into his mouth, barely opened one eye. "News? What news, Tsuro?" Tsuro hopped closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. "Wise tortoise said the baobab trees are in danger." Gudo's eyes snapped open. He sat up so fast that half-chewed fruit flew from his mouth. "Danger? From what?" "Not fire, not drought, but greed." Tsuro nodded solemnly. "Wise tortoise said that if a baobab tree belongs to only one animal, it will stop bearing fruit. But if two animals share, one strong, one clever, the tree will flourish forever." Gudo scratched his head, deep in thought. He had never heard of such a thing before, but wise tortoise was, well, wise. And the thought of his beloved baobab withering into a leafless stick sent shivers down his spine. "I can't let that happen," Gudo declared, puffing up his chest. "Then we must share," Tsuro said, grinning slyly. "A baboon and a hare, a perfect balance." And just like that, Tsuro moved in. But he wasn't done just yet. The very next day, Gudo climbed down from his throne of branches, only to find Tsuro digging under the roots, whistling a happy tune. In front of the burrow was a neat little sign. "Welcome to Tsuro's house." Gudo's jaw dropped. "Tsuro, you said we would share. Now you're calling this your house?" Tsuro chuckled, shaking his head. "Oh, Gudo, you misunderstand." He twitched his nose and spoke with great confidence. Wise Tortoise also said each of us must have our own special space, strong ones in trees, clever ones in burrows, balance, remember. Gudo scratched his head again. Well, I do still have the whole tree." "Exactly," Tsuro beamed. "A wise choice, my friend." And so Tsuro secured his cozy burrow under the baobab, but his tricks were far from over. One day, as Tsuro lounged in his burrow, a new problem arose. He craned his neck upward, gazing longingly at the plump baobab fruit hanging high above. Too high to reach," he muttered. "Why struggle when Gudo can do the work for me?" That afternoon, Tsuro approached Gudo, looking troubled. "Oh, Gudo, my friend, I have made a terrible mistake." He sighed dramatically. Gudo blinked. "What mistake?" Tsuro glanced around, then leaned in, whispering, "You remember what Wise Tortoise said?" Gudo nodded vigorously. "Yes. About sharing the tree?" Tsuro shook his head. No, I just remembered Wise Tortoise also said the strong one must feed the clever one." Otherwise the tree will think you are greedy and stop growing fruit." Gudo's eyes darted between Tsuro and the tree. He wasn't sure if this was true, but what if it was? He couldn't risk losing his beautiful baobab. With a sigh, he plucked a handful of ripe fruit and tossed them down to Tsuro. From that day on, Gudo did all the work, and Tsuro did all the eating. The clever hare had tricked the baboon once again, and as Tsuro lounged in his burrow, happily munching on his free feast, he couldn't help but wink at the sky, already thinking of his next trick.